What if you could have a career where the opportunities are as vast as our nation, where it's not about mission statements, but a shared mission? At U.S. Customs and Border Protection, we go beyond to protect more than borders. From ship to shore, air to ground, cities to local communities, CBP agents and officers are keeping people safe. Join U.S. Customs and Border Protection and go beyond for something far greater than yourself. Learn more at cbp.gov/careers.
Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets, interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. I hope you had a very nice holiday weekend. If you had off, or Passover, or Easter, hope that was a nice long weekend for you. I have been doing some pickup shots for Rutherford Falls Season 2, which I believe comes out in June or May, end of May, on Peacock. Oops. And so, little pickup shots there. That's fun, getting back into the groove of it. I'm pretending to be a buyer, which is kind of fun. I'm living the buyer life, as I said last week. Out there tagging, out there doing my own thing, getting my own lunch. It's kind of nice. I kind of really miss the buyer lifestyle, I'm not going to lie. But it's fun, and it's really quick, and it's nice. And it's at Universal, so it's nice to be back over there where I've been for so long. Haven't watched much TV with the holiday and such going on, and dyeing eggs and making sure my twins have matching bow ties. So, and I'm still sick. Cool. But I am still obsessed. What Wanup is watching this week? Pretty much the same. I'm just in the middle of everything of Winning Time and, we finished up that thing with Pam, with that Renee Zellweger. That was really crazy. That last episode was crazy. I cannot believe it's a true story. I don't know if anybody's watching that, but that woman was nuts, like bizarre nuts. So I thought that was really good. I thought the makeup and everything was good, and very, the set decoration and the vernacular of their world nailed it. Really good. And it really felt like a Dateline. I liked it. But I'm super obsessed with Julia on HBO Max. Production designer Steve Cooper and Patricia von Brandenstein, and then set decoration by Tiffany Zupala and Vanessa Knoll. I just love it. I wish I could watch hours of it. So yeah, trying to get back into Snowfall. I'm still doing Snowfall. I'm still doing Ted Lasso. I got to start the second season. I'm also watching the upcoming show that I will be taking over, which I'm not going to say yet because I haven't signed my deal and I feel like it's bad luck. So yeah, but I'm excited. I'm really excited about it, and I'll be talking about it soon enough. So back to work I go pretty soon. But yeah, that's what I've been up to this week. On next week's episode, I have Ashley Michelle Marsh, who is the set decorator on the last season of Better Call Saul. So look out for that. That's going to be good. She's super sweet and talks all about working in Albuquerque and the experience of this last season. And she has been with Breaking Bad and El Camino, and she's just been with these characters for a really long time. So it's great to hear a set decorator talk about those experiences. Oh, hey, just wanted to put out there, if you are a listener, obviously you are, could you review this little podcast on whatever platform you're on? A little click, 5 stars. Super, super easy. If you write a review, you are top notch, and I thank you so much. But it's super helpful for me just to know that people like what I'm doing, and any tips you have if you need any sort of questions or anything, you can always email me at kimwanup@decoratingpagespodcast.com. In this episode, I speak with set decorator Kimberly Leonard. Growing up in Los Angeles and being inspired by her uncle Donfeld, a costume designer, Kimberly studied at the design of Parsons School and then hit the ground running on features and Wheel of Fortune, Married with Children, even working in a prop house for a bit before finding the set decoration buyer position. Kimberly mastered that on shows like Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Enterprise, Boston Legal, Bones, Weeds, and many more. Kimberly started set decorating on the Robin Williams comedy The Crazy Ones, his last show, which is a bummer. We talk about that. Her set decorating credits include Jane the Virgin, The Grinder, Blindspotting, Counterpart, Apple's The Mosquito Coast, and just recently Hulu's The Dropout, which you know I've been obsessed with, and we talk all about it, those blood machines and her voice and all that good stuff. So I hope you enjoy. So yeah, that's annoying. And I think it's like almost every show. I mean, I know that World is supposed to be one of the worst, but I mean, look, your show, everyone I talk to is like, it's all locations, it's all us. It's
well, the Dropout, I did the first 6 episodes.
Yeah, which I love. I mean, I'm obsessed. I need to know.
I was too.
I need, because I watched that documentary about
I hope we're recording all this, by the way. I'm not going to have to go all about. Okay, good.
No. I record, and then it's like, we like come into our conversations like someone's peeking in on us. I want more about her process of changing her voice.
Well, it was pretty great because the first set, the chemical lab, which was, we'll call it just to keep it simple, at her Palo Alto office.
Yeah.
It was the first time I had ever spoken with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I just happened to be standing there in between for a safety meeting, in between Amanda and Naveen. And I had worked with Naveen before, so we were talking about that show a super long time ago, pre-Lost even. And he's great, super. She was great. He was great, approachable, normal. And she, was there with her, latte and normal clothes or non-Elizabeth clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first time she was talking to me about this lab, saying she couldn't believe it. She'd come in a couple of days before, and it was just this, box with walls, and asking about kind of the process, which was great. And then maybe a couple of days later, I saw a photo of her, which had been taken a couple of days before I saw her, in the turtleneck and the jacket and the hair and the lips and everything. And it was like, she had definitely transformed.
Yeah, she's nailed it. Yeah.
She nailed it. And she looked great. And that was before I even heard the voice. Then when I heard the voice, it was like, it's happened. It's really, I don't know what she's doing at night, but it's happening.
Yeah.
And she's just incredible and so gracious. And I mean, she was into it. That's how I transformed. She was into it. She absorbed that person.
One of the things I was going to ask you, like, where did you have any references of their lab to go off of, or is that like a design? Who's the designer? I forgot.
Kat Smith.
Oh yeah, Kat. Oh, nice. So is that just new design, or is it replicated after what they had going on?
So because Elizabeth is so super secretive, very few photos.
Right.
And there were several labs. There was the chemical lab, the engineering lab, the Normandy lab, the Jurassic lab, the Stanford lab. I mean, it's a show about labs, and it gets hard to period piece do different every time. We had a couple of photos of I'll call it the blue and white lab to keep it easy. The Jurassic lab, which was when she got to what everybody knows, the big, beautiful open office space.
Mm-hmm. We
had a couple of photos of that, and that was a challenge unto itself, that entire office. The chemical lab, we did have a technical advisor on, which was so great, because I've done tons of labs, but I wanted to make sure period correct wise.
Yeah.
And for, okay, this is microfluidics. This is her goal. This is her target, and making sure kind of how we got there.
Yeah.
Kat had done a ton of research, and we talked about that to death. And I talked to the advisor to death. And then I would go, find all of the stuff that I thought was amazing and would look good and would actually be appropriate. Not just, I'm told I'm very strict, Kim. So I want it.
I know you are. I've worked with you.
I want it to be accurate. I don't want anybody, these days with
I know you don't
pausing and rewinding, and I've saved it for 5 years and it's now here. I want it to be right, and I also want it to represent, well, first me right. And then once I get it right for me, then it's right for Kat, and then it kind of filters out,
Yeah.
But I didn't have a beat on microfluidics and how that was going to go. So to have this advisor on, which was so great to be able to shout out to Dr. Jonathan, to, lean on him a little bit. What I would do is I would shop it, and I would get all my stuff together, and I would put it all on a Pinterest page, do a screen grab of it, so he could just see it as one page and say, yes, this is great. This could work as deep background, or yes, it was, all great. And, we would go through it and how to connect those things. And the crew that I've had forever now, they're so into that stuff. They're so into science and sci-fi and engineering. And so all of the hoses from the ceiling to clean things and all of this, the engineering lab is different than the chemical lab, and all of that to be able to really make a difference there and segregate that, it was really important. And then to be able to reflect that with the blue and white Jurassic lab, and then the change to the Normandy lab, and it all needed to be different, but to a lot of people it looks the same. So to really kind of ride that hard line and say, look, it's actually many ways of getting to microfluidics. There are many, she has to be this smart.
Yeah.
Or her, she has to have access to people who have this brain and that brain and think like this and look at things like that, because that's where this box needs to get. Yeah. And so to do these labs, I love doing labs, obviously, but I was glad there wasn't like an 8th lab coming up, because it was getting a little challenging around town.
I really like the white panels you had in
Mm-hmm.
one of the, is it like the Phlebotics or whatever that lab was?
Yep, that was the Normandy lab.
Yeah, I really like those white panels, because I was like, oh, that's smart. Because you probably did dress every cubicle, but at least it gave camera something to like, okay, we can like hide behind here for those scenes. And
yeah.
I thought those were really smart and probably movable, nice for camera too. So.
On wheels. And even though we didn't show this side of those panels, writable, they're dry erase.
Yeah, dry erase. Oh, nice.
So the intention was that everybody has their space, and you're writing your formulas, and it's all you. Nobody can peek in and see, and that I think is really a unique disposition to that kind of lab. To scientists are all supposed to be sharing and visualizing together, and screaming across the room, hey, I got it, and we're nailing it, and new idea. And to be that guarded and monitored and boxed in, that was the intention.
Did you get any product placement for that? Was that available, or is it because it was dated you couldn't? I mean, finding multiples of dated lab shit is, unless you're going for really old, it's really hard.
No product placement. I tried for one piece of product placement because I have a relationship with the Cisco phone people.
Oh yeah.
Of course. And we've all been using them forever, which is great. They come out, they plug them in, they light them up. It's, it's great. You can do they do the room to room call. They do it all, right? It's one call. Of course not because it's period. Right. So, I had one picture of Elizabeth Holmes on her phone in her office. She was sitting next to her phone or standing next to it. And it was like, this big on the photo. And I said, oh, I think that's the Cisco 7390 or, whatever it was. And so I screen grabbed it and I sent it to my Cisco people, and they said, oh, well, probably this model. And that I said, okay, great. This is the year, so on and so forth. And I needed, I don't know, 175 of them. They said, this is what we think it is, but we can't even begin to program anything of that period at all. Their software is antiquated. We don't even have phones anymore.
Oh.
So, right.
It is kind of weird that they don't keep the older phones. It is kind of weird because
I agree.
All we're doing
Especially
now is periods. Yeah, because all we're doing now is period stuff. There's so many 90s and 2000s shit going on.
I mean, I think they'll probably rethink that idea because we're all doing so many. This is what it is now. Yeah. But ultimately, I ended up buying, I don't know, 80 phones. And I rented another 80 or 70 or something like that. And I made the gel cut. I went old school with it. Gel cut thing, just Theranos on them. They were in the beginning of the ABC piece, so I felt pretty good about that. It's like, at least that wasn't for now.
Yeah.
But, I don't like watching shows when I see phones not lighting up or, yeah. I mean, I get it. It's a lot of work, but I'd rather than have a phone that doesn't have a screen like that.
Yeah.
But trying to be accurate with her and strict, I really wanted to have that available. So it just kind of worked out. That was really the only promo that I even tried for.
How much prep did you have? Do you remember?
6 to 7 weeks. About 7 weeks, I think. Maybe 7.5 weeks.
And did they do like 10-day episodes?
Kim, I don't even remember.
You don't know, because it's so hard to know now because they cross shoot and then you're like, I don't know, we're on 1 and 2 and then we're on 3 and 4, so I don't know.
We were 1 through 4. We shot the first block all at once, and it was like 4 or 5 different time periods.
Right.
All locations and change this out, and you know how it is. I'm not telling you anything. You've done it a million.
I love Bill Macy's house. I love that.
Oh my God. First of all, he came up to me in the parking lot, me and I was with Gary, the lead, and somebody else, and we were looking for the place where Elizabeth vomits or something. Yeah. And he came up and started talking about his air conditioning. Do you know where I can find someone to fix my air conditioning? We're shooting in Chatsworth in his trailer. And it was like, the bald cap and the makeup, everything looked so great.
It's incredible.
He looked fantastic. And he walked away and we were like, that's William H. Macy. Oh my God. But I'll tell you, his bedroom stuff came from a place out in like Riverside or San Bernardino. And they had stuff in a storage locker in Arizona that they had gotten from a hotel in Houston that had closed in 2004. It was just this whole chain of it's totally meant for me. It's totally meant for me.
It's what's great about his bedroom is the scale you nailed because it's so big, and sometimes, especially with rental furniture, it's not that big or it's too big. But the scale of it, and then the scale of the pictures on the wall, I love too. These big urns, I think, on either side. It's really, objects. Yeah, objects. Yeah, and would you never? That's hard. Sometimes you see things in prop houses, and you're like, oh, I'd love to use that, and then you're like, oh, that's really too big. I wish they were smaller. And for this, you were probably like, oh, fantastic.
Well, William H. Macy, his character, I just gave Hughes, had all of these patents, and he's just, he's a big looming businessman, and he's from Texas, and he's, to me, he's kind of, at least on the page, he was bigger than life, and then when you've got him in person, he's like, wow, he's also, he's somehow also getting dogged out by Elizabeth in her own way, which is pretty great. So, I mean, he thought he was pretty cool and big, and everything in Texas is bigger. Yeah. So this set was, I'm telling you, it was a lucky find. You can find it at Warner Brothers, by the way.
Very nice.
because I wanted to put it back out there in the world so that we would all have access to it because of the scale of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. It's
So
really
yeah,
good. And
we had to present
it's a very character bed. It's a real character bed. I love
that.
those.
Very Texas.
Yeah.
So that was a good find.
So did you leave to do something else, or did you leave because you were done?
Well, I did not leave to do something else. There were the schedule got to be a little much for anyone off production,
Right.
and the distances, and in the beginning of the show, it was like I had 4 to 6 on-set dressers every day because of the changes and the move this and move that, and you couldn't move forward.
Right.
And then it would kind of calm down for a minute, but then it would just roar back up. And I think we're kind of in this day with this turn in the film industry where we're into this new group of people who have no clue what off production does, and why we do it and how we do it, and then it actually does take thought. And changes are always going to happen. Totally great. But when you schedule things, that are 60, 70 miles away, and then in the middle of the night, like at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night, call and say, we need night Christmas. It was a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I let me say, I lobbied to be on the show for over a year, pre-COVID. And I had followed the story. I was obsessed, just like you are. I really wanted to do it. And I had actually committed to another show with Patch, pivoted, and called me and said, hey, actually, would you? And she couldn't even get it out of her mouth. She started talking about there's this woman with this blonde hair and these eyes. And I'm like, yes, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I hope you're calling, by the way. Yes, I'll do it.
I know that crazy bitch. I'm in.
Right? Totally. And so I said, this is, we've done everything that we can do here. There are like probably, I think maybe 8 to 12 sets left in the 7 episodes 7 and 8. We had done about 100 sets and a lot of labs.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I said we were leaving and we were there another 8.5 weeks.
Yeah.
There wasn't any like ill will or anything like that. It was, we had given all that we could give.
Oh yeah.
And I had never left a project. Which it was 20. I just celebrated 24 years on February 9th.
Congrats.
Doing this, thank you. In various positions in the set decorating department. And I didn't, feel like I didn't know what else we could do.
I think that's what it's bringing us to. I think on impeachment, I had my quit speech in like March, and I was like, I'm just gonna, I know what I'm gonna say when I hit this wall. I know what I'm gonna do. I gotta walk away. This is killing. I'm going to break. I would drive to work in the morning, and like a mantra in my head, unbeknownst to me, is like, you're gonna break. You are going to break. Like constantly in my head, because we were moving at the time, and it was like moving and working and COVID and this and that, and like it was just, I couldn't take it, and I was like, I can't leave this design. I can't leave Jamie. I can't do this. What am I just gonna leave? Like there's this such guilt that we can't leave.
Totally.
That
yes.
It's way more healthy.
You and I don't come from that leaving generation. We don't do that. Don't do that. That's it. That's just that guilt. I'll never not feel guilty about it. You didn't leave impeachment, did you?
I didn't, but I wanted to. And
I mean, and let me just say that I think two weeks after we finally left, after our 8.5 to 9 week announcement, 2 weeks after we finally left, they let go of the first AD and the DP. and all of the challenges that we were experiencing and having were really related around two nice, but really, kind of all over, not on that rail that that we've just already talked about, that those people were gone.
Yeah.
And it was like
24 ADs. We went through 24 ADs.
No, stop it.
24.
Well, this is also to me a tell, and this is the first time I started thinking about it was on this show, on the Dropout. And by the way, I still cried a cat about it. I mean, we had dinner not so long ago, and I was like, I'm so sorry, Cat. I left you, and because I feel terrible about it, and so does the crew. We just never experienced anything like it,
Yeah.
I say we've been spoiled or whatever.
It's not
We just,
no.
but that's how we feel. And
Yes.
you know what I'm saying. It's that guilt of, I've worked with a lot of colorful characters, as you have, and I've put up with a lot. I have a pretty thick skin. So it was to even have the conversation, like my voice was changing. I was becoming Elizabeth. And it was a shock that these words were coming out of this voice that like didn't belong to me.
Yeah.
But I felt so proud of the work
Oh,
that,
yeah. You
that
should.
we
Oh my God,
did.
it's fantastic.
We did some incredible work, and like literally looking through 101 to 106, and episodes 7 and 8 were going to all be in the page mail, the big one. I was like, there's nothing left to do in page mail. I've literally done everything that there might be a couple of swing sets.
Yeah.
Go with God.
Yeah. But don't you think that is also, I don't want to say with age or with experience, but it is, I don't think at a certain point I would have ever, or you would have ever let go. I wouldn't have let anyone else touch my set. I wouldn't have let maybe it's for me it's insecurity maybe, but I don't think I've done it.
I'm still salty about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. They just like were ostriches about it, and God love them, because they were like, Kim's going to change her mind. We know Kim. She's not going to let go of anything, because we know I'm me and you're you. It must come with the name. And, I felt very strange about it, but I also, this is kind of what I had to come to grips with. I didn't, and having never done it before, I mean, in the worst of the worst circumstances, I mean, Michael Mann, David Lynch, I have them on there like we do as badges of honor.
Yeah.
Like I've done this, right? And it just came to a point where I looked at the crew.
Yeah, they're exhausted.
And uninspired.
And beat. We're all beat down.
And I can't, it's not fair to the show at some point. I've done what I've come here to do. Kind of, I've already had that mic drop moment.
Yeah.
That's already, the major stuff is done. And I look, Kat and I went through the sets for 7 and 8 pretty extensively. This wasn't like I'm throwing my sweater down and I'm leaving the room and I'm done. Right. It wasn't that at all. Yeah. It was.
You wrapped it up and gave it. Yeah.
And continued to wrap it when the show was done. Yeah. Because I had so many trades and Kim, I'm a hustler. So there's like all these things that need to, these shells that need to get wrapped up, that only really I knew about. And I'm I owe that to the show. I owe that to make that tidy. I owe that to Kat. Well, I mean, it just is what it is, and I wanted the show to continue to look good.
Oh yeah.
And if I didn't feel that I could deliver that, then I need to step aside. And as awful as that is to admit, I didn't want to be in Arcadia at 9:00 on a Wednesday night in my pajamas anymore.
No.
I didn't want to stand outside in 105-degree heat with 96% humidity in Chatsworth, waiting for the 5th meal penalty so that we could go in and create Christmas.
Yeah,
These are, small examples.
But it's like a lot of shows.
But see, Kim, I didn't know that. I didn't know that because Jane was difficult. We had 37 sets every 7 days. Yes.
Right.
That was difficult. But that was a lot of, change this office into kind of thing.
Right.
And that was fine. It was just, knowing how to manage working at the beach. That's the biggest obstacle there. And the creator, those were the two biggest challenges. Right. And so again, I've done really hard stuff. And I didn't know, that I have no problem with hard. I have no problem with excruciating. This to me started to get beyond that. Well, and I'm responsible for people, and I just wasn't willing to keep going.
It's like I tell Ethan now when he wants to go to another show, it's the same shit every show. You just pick where you want to go, and you might as well be with nice people. And you might as well love what you're diving into. I mean, you have to. I mean, you love that project. That's what kept you there so long, and that's the passion of it. It's what keeps us going. I don't know. I think the older I get, the more likely I am to have my hand on the door. Yeah. Just to not put up with shit for all of my crew, for all of us. That's just it. I'm not, and I get it now. I get like people all these years telling me like, oh, go ahead, do that, or yeah, you can. Yeah. How was that? I definitely kept hearing, oh, this is how it is. This is how it is. And I was like, well, that might be how it is for you. But that's not how it's going to be for me. And, this is kind of, I see that this is definitely the rhythm. And I don't fault anybody, even though, look, had I been given a wink or a nudge or a fortune cookie or a note or a fleeting star that some people were going to be replaced like they were, we would have stayed. Right. We would have stayed because there wasn't that much more to do there, but I will tell you what it's prepared me for. Now I'm going to ask different questions, different questions, I should say. Yeah. Now I know. Now so it's now I know, and I'm not going to do that again. Now I will just manage it differently, but I will now know going up front that I need to ask different questions because we're at a churn in the industry. Times are different, and people aren't coming in the same way. People aren't going through that rigid, AD program, or they didn't start on set or on a truck, or they're just a DP one day, good for them.
No shade, no shade at all.
But it does affect the rest of us.
It affects the rest of us, and they don't know
how it's supposed to go.
And they don't know what it takes to do what off-production people do. Right. And so I think, for me moving forward, and I've already done this, I've just started asking different questions. Yeah. If I'm not with people that I know and that I've worked with before and that I've experienced their style before, I'm just gonna ask it all. Better we know up front.
It's like self-care.
Yeah.
Like, no, totally. I just want to know what I'm getting into here, and if I can handle that. But yeah.
Well, and then with COVID and all of it, and look, I love the show. I mean, I'm in contact with absolutely everyone still, of course. It's not, I wanted the best for the show for the last 2 episodes.
Oh, of course.
I don't remember how many sets were left, but it wasn't that many. And I felt we lived up to quite a commitment. Oh, I still feel guilty. I'm always going to feel guilty. It's just who I am.
You set a high bar. And it was Regina that took it over, right? She did. I mean, I didn't see the 8th episode yet, but
I'm sure it'll be great.
I'm sure it'll be great. I also need to dive into you being a buyer for so long, and why did you want to decorate? Because I think about going back all the time.
Me too. Me too. I only switched because Carol Kelly retired and Jim passed away.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, what? So right. Carol moved out of state.
Well, Carol,
and then now she's retired, but she moved out of state to care for her mom, and Jim passed away suddenly, as you know. For me, I had gone out and worked for a couple of people after Jim passed.
But wait, let's start with how did you get in this? Let's
in the film industry period.
Let's go deep.
Or shopping.
No, film industry.
So
did you want to do this? Did you want to? No.
Well, no. Okay. So So,
no, I don't want to do it.
I actually, lo those many years ago, I wanted to be an architect. There was no, I went to Parsons. I realized pretty early on, I had the vision in my head, but I couldn't draw. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Like
Little.
moving forward, a decade, a dear friend of mine, set designer, was like, oh, everything's on computer now anyway, I'll teach you how to do it on computer. I think we were working on Boston Legal, nice, plenty of time show, a few nameplates here and there. And I was like, I can't just learn how to do it on the computer. I mean, I need to know how to actually draw. I can't, what? That's not who I am at all. I need to know the full complement of information just to torture myself. So that the architecture thing wasn't going to be for me, and neither was set design, because, couldn't make it happen with a pencil all up here. But when I went to college, they had not come up with also their architecture program or anything. So fine, art and art history minors, psychology degree. I went out to the corporate world of, I can do anything with this. This is great. Hated it, Kim. Yeah. Hated it. Hated the meetings. Hated it all.
Yeah.
Hated it. And so one day I got a call. They were, into permits, whatever that meant. And are you okay there?
No,
what happened?
I moved my chair down. Who called you they were into permits? Who called you?
Someone from 44, I don't even remember, but it was super busy. It was like Water World and Volcano and
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Someone from the union called you to get into the union? Usually you have to call them and beg them to let me in.
That's how desperate they were. It was nuts. Our union went from like 2,500 people to like 5,000 in like a year. It was insane. It could have been any union, Kim, that called me. I could have been like an ice cream person at this point. It could have been. It probably could have. Yeah, it could have been probably anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, goodbye, corporate world. I'm done. Like I just didn't want it anymore. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. And so I could have been, I don't know, selling makeup. I could have been anything. It was going to be stitching pillows, anything. And so I got my days in set dressing. I started actually, my very first day was on a feature. It was a period piece, and it was 103, literally all day. The call time was 4 a.m. and they had fired the greensman. Welcome to your new greensman, who I could kill fake grass. I mean, I'm not the person, but I did it, and I was so happy to be there. And it was just, something else. And I could just zone out and stomp 6,000 square feet of sod all day and make that lovely. And, so I started on the crew. I worked on Wheel of Fortune like you did for, quite some time. Did the letterboard, loved it. Did prize shoots, moss in the castle wall. I loved it all. Married with Children, loved it. Worked in a Paramount prop house when that existed. And then, that generation, I would say, of set decorator hadn't used shoppers. I didn't know what that was. I was doing fixtures. I mean, I was kind of all over the place, which was great. It's such a great way to learn.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I started working with people that, were still using leads as shoppers. Basically, they would follow behind with tags and tape, right, and, tag it up. And that's kind of how I started shopping. And I just got into a great niche and worked with people like you and Jim and Carol Kelly and Julie Boulder. I worked with a bunch. But then when I kind of got out there in the world after, my bubble had exploded, and I worked with people who were not you or Jim or, what I would call people who were kind of in my circle, it was like, this is nuts. And if this is what it's going to be, then I'm just going to do it myself. Because a lot of the times, and because you shopped forever, look, we do a lot of the work and people aren't around, and I'm just like, it's totally fine. I don't need the credit. I don't need the glory. I just I'm enjoying the challenges, and I love what I do. I love getting that thing that nobody else could do. I love that feeling.
Right.
A lot of that on the Dropout, by the way, which, we can circle back to. So that's how I started decorating. Was I had this opportunity to do the Robin Williams show, the last Robin Williams TV show, The Crazy Ones. I had shopped on the pilot with Carol, and then Carol moved to Atlanta, and then they asked me to do the series because I had shopped on a bunch of David E. Kelley shows when I was working with Marianne, and I had also done a bunch of Fox stuff, including with you, with Bones. And so I kind of had a relationship there with everyone, which was going to come in handy, apparently.
Yeah.
And so I said, God, this is such a great opportunity. If this is it, if I have to make this change, why not do it now with Robin Williams and David E. Kelley and all of this amazingness, as opposed to,
And beautiful sets. I mean,
thank you.
Beautiful sets to inherit and then to embellish. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I mean, the modern office there was just beautiful, and that whole elevator you came off of, it was just yeah.
It was the whole to do it from the beginning to the end, which was great. To shop it, to decorate it, to I was the whole ending was devastating for everyone.
Yeah.
Devastating for everyone. But what an opportunity, and what memories, I mean, I had never worked with Robin Williams before. He would come into the sets, and especially like his apartment, and say, now tell me about this race car or this painting. And this is exactly what I would have in my house if I were Simon Roberts, and really approachable. And he would talk to the crew, and he was really that person, really, and not who I anticipated at all. So it was really, really a gift. It was such a great way to start.
It's so nice to hear. It's so sad also.
All the way around.
Yeah.
All the way around. So that's, I love the hunt. So to be a buyer for so long, I was never going to change. Like Jim and I were going to go out together.
But you have a good eye. Like, that you have good sense back when you were at Parsons. Like that, because there is a difference in architecture. You're either looking at the building or you're looking at the pillows. Like there's a direction that you're going in.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's all clustered together to people. But when you're in it, like I switched from architecture to interior design because I couldn't handle the physics, I couldn't handle the math.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to an interior design firm one day for outing, and it was like pillows and tassels and drinks and let's go. And then we went the next day to the architecture firm, and it was like you could hear a pin drop, and everyone was like, drafting, and I was like, I'm out. I can't handle it anyway. So why am I gonna? That's not me. That's not my personality. So I knew then. Oh yeah, I need color. I need pattern. I need that in my life.
Texture.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it for me is there's a feeling, when it all comes together, you evoke a feeling, right? And for me on sets, like if we're talking about that one thing, something's not right. That's not always good, unless it's, a hero prop that somebody's holding in their hand, or a beautiful necklace or whatever. I want environments to be comfortable and to make sense and not to have to think about it. For example, with the Dropout, that 50,000 square foot bullpen, and add a couple of labs in there that really, in comparison to the workspaces, those were not big at all compared to that large space. But everything had to kind of sing and have emotion, so construction built, these tables, which look good on paper. They look really good on paper. They fit really nicely together with what I call, the office people and the people who sit there and type away and put the numbers on the page. But when the elements, and they were beautifully constructed, beautifully painted, when the elements are actually there and you're holding up the plan of how they're going to go together in the space, that doesn't work. It's a feeling. And so you're constantly hopscotching and constantly moving, and have to be prepared to do that anyway for camera. And that to me was always the goal. I didn't want to be the paper or the blueprint person. I wanted to be the person who could go in there and feel it,
right,
and make it right. And that's what I always wanted to do wherever I was. It just happened to be, the sheets and light fixtures and period correct pencils and pencil sharpeners, and no way would anyone have that dish towel and any of that stuff that I really freak out on. People think I'm over the top, and that's okay. I'm okay with that, because that's what I'm here to do. That's what you're there to do.
But I do have those feelings of like when you walk through and there's just stuff, because sometimes you just need stuff to look like it's full and everything.
Sure.
And then you go in and you're like, well, they wouldn't have this, like, why is this here? And then I'm like, I know it's just filler, but like, seriously, like, that shouldn't be here.
Yeah. And I mean, but that's the pressure that we put on ourselves. Right. And look, I mean, it's told to me probably every couple of months. Oh, well, you put so much pressure on yourself, and your 70% is better than most people's 100. It's like, well, that's great, but I'm not working for them. I'm doing it for me first. Yeah. And I have to feel good about what I put forward first, and then you get it. And then everyone else just kind of benefits from the insanity that goes on in my head and in the middle of the night in my eBays and my offer ups. And I'll tell you, the crew calls it like the worst Kim Leonard transaction yet, but it's the best, are the 5 blood machines on the Dropout.
Where'd you get them?
Oh, all over the country. I mean, I found one, and then you can't buy them. They're something that Siemens actually gives to hospitals and everything, and then you pay to process the blood. You pay for the technology. Mm-hmm. So you can't buy these machines at all. Well, of course, I happened to find one, and then I just decided to email the person, by the way, if you happen to come across any blood analyzers, I'd be interested in 4 more.
I'm a vampire and I'm in the market.
That's exactly right. And so we connected, and we, started going to town, and he found them during COVID, and they were all over the country, and he went physically and checked them out in Florida and all over the place, and got them together, and we're getting them ready to ship. And every day I'm in contact with my guy, every morning, phone conversations. Hey, how you doing? Such and so on. Great. Fine. He gets the shipping going, and here they come. I'm tracking them, and all of a sudden, I wake up to an email from him, because he's in like Wisconsin or something. And he says, call me the minute you read this. That's never good.
Never.
It's just never good.
Never good.
Never good. And the machines had been in an accident. And they were at he doesn't have any photos yet, but they were at the front of the trailer. Behind it were some cars, and he doesn't really know, and and on and on. It's like, all right, well, give me the pictures when you got them. There's no excuse to tell me this without photos, by the way. I was, trying to keep my cool about it. Like, don't deliver the news without a photo. I want proof.
I just want to see the bunny. I don't care how the bunny gets in the hat. I just want to see the bunny.
Don't care.
I say to my guys.
That's it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the photo comes, and I mean, and this trailer thing was, I mean, it was jacked up. It was the car was definitely done. Mm. And the machines were in front of the car, and thank God they were okay. Sorry for the guy with the car, but don't care about him really. Yeah. But he can get another one. I can't get another machine. Yeah. I can't get more machines. And so then they had to be impounded. Well, no, that can't work, because I need them now. We're down to about 4 weeks by this point. That can't work. And I'm still not too ruffled about it, because I've got time. Well, now we have to wait for insurance to come out. And then such and so has, and these are 3 and 4 days at a time. Such and so has to, are you willing to sign a waiver if there's any damage? Absolutely. So now the head of Hulu had to sign an insurance waiver. Then another couple of days, they have to get offloaded to someone else. Now, finally, they're back on the road.
You've got some black market shit going on here, Kim. I don't know.
Totally. Totally.
I would have been like, look, I'm not even using them. Just give them to me.
Story point. I got to have them. And then the highway patrol pulled them over and dismantled all the machines because they thought they were carrying drugs in them. I mean, the day before they shot.
Get it. I would have told construction, just build me some boxes and slap it.
No way, Kim. I couldn't. Look, the day before they shot, they rolled in a Penske truck.
Oh my God. It's always like that. It's always down to the wire.
It's always down to the wire. But those are, I think, when you're a buyer, you have a lot of those little victories going away along. And so I still haven't let that part of my life go. I'm still involved and I know about people's cats and whatever it takes.
Well, yeah, I don't like to talk to a lot of people because then I get involved and then I want to talk to, but I do a lot of the online shopping because I feel bad that I'm not physically shopping. Like I
get it.
That in me.
Me too. I totally get it.
I'll do all of LA Party. I'll do all. Anything I can do online. I'll do all advanced.
Yeah.
You might have to go and look at it, but I'll do all of this because I still. I never. It's It's like I never want anyone to be like, oh, she doesn't do anything. Like
Kim, I totally get it.
Anything.
But you've also worked in that circumstance where for those people who didn't do anything because you were doing everything.
So I don't want that to be me. And even though we've been decorating for such a long time, and we do think, I mean, I haven't been to a prop. I can't get out. Like it's either shooting or it's meetings or like you go in the beginning of the season.
I totally get it.
You check out your prop houses. What's going on here? What can we use here? Can I make a deal here?
Sure.
And then it's like, I'll see you on the next show because I know I'm not going to be able to get here.
I'm totally with you. And honestly, thank God for the crew. And I have two really great buyers who I use and they're, amazing. And
who was on Dropout with you?
Liza Chenault and Tara Kusurik, same buyers. Oh, nice. And they're fantastic. And the communication is great, which is so helpful. And I'm very specific, which I try to be. So they're, because I've been in that position of shopping and it's just like, go handle it, and I don't want to be that person either. And it is hard to get out. And I also do a lot of online shopping. So don't feel so guilty about doing that. And I'll tell you, I go into prop houses and people are like,
who are you? I always say that Ethan tells people I'm his PA.
Ethan, who? Your shopper? Stop it.
They'll be like, who was that with you? And
I saw him a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Oh, she's our set deck.
I love it. It's good. You don't need to be there. Get back in your car. Go on your Zoom meeting. It is hard to let it go. And sometimes, Marianne used to tell me this all the time. And this was, Marianne Biddle. This was, and I didn't really get it until I started set decorating, but she'd say, okay, go find like a red leather couch or something, whatever it is. And I'd go all over town, everywhere. And I'd get every red leather couch. I'd be, in Orange County, I'd be in Palmdale, I'd be, all over. And I'd come back with 48 red leather couches.
Kim,
and she'd be like, oh, it's not here. And then she would go out and she would find like a black velvet undulated back with rolled arms and like, a spoon foot or something. And I'd be like, I've walked past that couch about 8 times. She's like, it just motivated me in a different direction.
Okay. So, but that's what I say to my buyers. If I ask you for a red couch, shoot me some red couches, maybe 5 top. I don't like too many options. But then if you see something interesting, include that too, because I'm not there. So I always ask for that from them. Like you go outside the box too, because I could be wrong. It could not be a red couch.
I'm gonna start incorporating that into the dialogue because I usually try to be so specific, but I have, Marianne sitting in the back of my head too. I also have Jim sitting on the other side where, I had gone and photographed. We were doing a Puerto Rican apartment and I found, of course, the perfect Puerto Rican couch. I mean, I have Puerto Rican people in my family. I got this. This is nothing. Right. This is like, I found this in my sleep. And I was so happy, at 6:05, I meet him at, Warner Property. And I'm like, let's go see this Puerto Rican couch. And it's like rust, wide wheeled cord, beautiful. Right. It's so obvious what that's going to be. And he just stood there. He didn't move. I mean, you remember Jim. Didn't move with his, his Jill Sander boots on and, his amazing jewelry. And he says, oh no, that's totally wrong. And I just wept. I wept in the Warner Brothers elevator. I was like, I'll never forget. It was episode 7 of Women's Murder Club, the Quiroga apartment.
Oh my God. And
I was like, if I don't have your eyes by now, I need to be doing something else. This is, I can, and he went on this diatribe, and it's always stuck with me about your Puerto Rican is different than my Puerto Rican. Your experience in your family and your part of the Puerto Rican world, wherever that is different than his, where he had it. And it's like, yes, that's absolutely true. So to what you're saying, an interpretation can be different and it doesn't need to be wrong. And it's taken me, I'm still trying to really wrap my hands around that and not be so rigid.
I feel like that's a weird conversation with Jim, though, because if you are Puerto Rican and
he would say, this is really how he would say it. You're not Puerto Rican, that's your aunt who's Puerto Rican, so it doesn't really count.
Well, kind of, Jim.
And
then here's the bottom line. It's about the character. It's not about either one of us, but I'm ripping off experience here, Jim.
Right. And his experience is, Mayo Pack, New York, and my great aunt lives in Spanish Harlem. Right. That's it's a different experience. And I could talk to, Puerto Rican friends who live in Connecticut, and that would too be different, so I don't really think there's anything wrong. I just think that it's perception, and a lot of it is experience.
I think it's funny.
It is, but that's
you were right. You just weren't right for him.
Right. And that's hence the tears.
But he's also he was also, he was an old school decorator. So I get it.
I can hear the Emmys clanking together. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah.
And that's the guy for me. I never needed to decorate. If I was going to be, in the umbrella of amazingness, forever, with somebody who was a child prodigy and who was a professor and Carnegie Mellon and, all of this amazingness, and I could continue learning and absorbing. That's what I would want to do, because I learned so much, and we did so much other side stuff, charity events and houses and all kind of stuff, but always constantly learning. It didn't matter that the Quiroga apartment couch was necessarily not right for him, we'll call it.
Right.
But to, our job at that point as buyers is to put on, okay, I'm shopping for Kim Wana. I've got to have my Kim Wana glasses on. And then when that's not available, then I can just tilt them down a little bit and see, what's that other option? Yeah. And I think that was, more the point of, yes, this is your experience, but include other experiences in there when you're looking for things. And that, was my takeaway once I, wept away the bucket of tears and finally collected myself over a Starbucks.
So after you start decorating and you do the grinder with Taubman, and then you do...
I didn't do it with him.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I did it with Sue Chan, started it, and then Sharon Bussey took it over.
I thought, yeah. Well, and then you go for a long stint on Jane the Virgin.
Long stint.
Yeah. And
I was decorator number 5 on Jane, and I started season 3.
How do you feel? Because I basically only take over shows, so I know the answer to this question, but when you take over a show, the respective continuity, but yet putting your own Kim Leonard glasses on it, don't you feel it's hard? I find it hard.
with Jane, when I started decorating, because I started later than like you did, or Lisa Alcover, or other people who kind of started at the same time. You all made that transition much earlier than I did. You had different goals than I did, right? Again, I was happy staying under the umbrella, and just tooting along with my, my own.
I think about going back all the time. So yeah. Okay.
Hey, I'm available, Kim. um, but I had this kind of list that I wanted to make myself really well-rounded. One thing I really saw a lot, and I learned a lot from a lot of people, I didn't want to be pigeonholed. I didn't want to be, oh, she's the Star Trek person, or oh, she's the space or the sci-fi person only, or 3-camera only, or single camera only. We're visionaries. We're visionaries. So why can't we do it all? I'll tell you, when I was on the gang, I did a ton of 3-camera stuff. Wheel of Fortune, I don't want to be the game show person, although I loved Wheel of Fortune and my time there. I had such a great time there, and they were always so good to me. Shout out to Randy Burke.
Yeah, still kicking.
Amazing. And I learned so much there. But I never wanted to be pigeonholed as one thing. So when I had interviewed for Jane, didn't get it. They hired Dina Allen, amazing decorator. Mm-hmm. And then she moved on to other opportunities. And then they were circling the drain and finally got to me, which was fine. And so I took over season 3, and I needed a 1 hour with multiple seasons. That was my goal. This was my goal. I had done a lot. I had already done, multiple sci-fi. I'd done single camera half hour. I'd done, all these other things, but I needed multiple seasons of a 1 hour. And I knew Jane was already signed for 5 seasons. So if I could struggle through, because I had heard it was difficult, I was going to be golden. And also, just coming to your question, I knew that maybe episode 9 or so, episode 309, 311, somewhere in there, that the hotel was going to be changing over. It was going to be blown out, and we were going to do a full boutique nautical themed hotel.
Oh, sweet.
Perfect. So I was going to get to put my stamp on that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was going to get to let everyone take a peek into my mind of what ridiculousness goes on in there. And I had that opportunity plus multiple seasons, and I made so many friends there, and it was really difficult, but really good training for, part of developing a process, and, working far, and no time. And it was one of the first shows that was 7 days instead of 8. And repulls, can I change that a little bit? Because I felt that was a little small, or a little weak, or too big, or too bright, or, so yeah, with Jane was kind of interesting because it was such a difficult show that you could almost feel like the furniture had given up. You could feel that it was like, I got the set tour and I was like, don't worry, I'll save you guys. It's okay. You know what I mean? I was like, I wanted some energy in there, Right. And so I knew that I'd have that opportunity to do that when we did the full hotel changeover. And to this day, even last night, I constantly, probably 2-3 times a week, get emails about, I'm redoing my office. Yeah. I saw you did Jane the Virgin. And I'm like, it wasn't my show at all. I loved everyone on it. Everyone's amazing, but it wasn't something that I was watching. That's the show that I get the most emails about.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. It's that culty.
Yeah.
Really multi-generational show that everyone gravitated towards, and I was lucky to have that opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always great in a sense that you get this inheritance and it's there, and it's a challenge to keep. Like, I mean, if I took over Parks and Rec,
Mm-hmm.
things start to become like a little iconic in these comedy shows. You can't change things.
Yes.
And I remember taking over a show and being like, they wanted to change things, but this seems like it's a pretty purposeful chair here, so I don't know.
Yes.
And I went back and forth, and basically the producer was like, I just want it to look better. And I was like,
Right.
done. Now I get it. Like, I don't have to kill myself here.
And it's developing that trust and that shorthand, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't able, I didn't, the creator of that show, we had a few conversations, but also within the first 5 episodes that I was there, we had 3 production designers on Jane. So it was that show, so, but luckily I knew, I hoped that everything would kind of culminate by that hotel changeover. And we had to have that trust by them, because it wasn't going to be done like on a hiatus or a holiday shutdown. It was done as an episode, and it was a full.
That's huge.
Huge. So you were going to trust me or you were not, but either way, it was going to look great, and you were just it was going to look great, and you were going to have to get over it. Yeah. That's what it was going to be. And even something as like the flower conversation. We all have this flower conversation, and it's like other people have given up, and it's like, I'm sorry, we're in a boutique hotel in Miami. Real flowers are coming. I'm telling you up front, they're coming. Yeah. And that constant meeting, every meeting, it was like, they're still coming.
I believe me, I've been in the White House for a long time now, and that's all I have is fresh flowers.
They're coming.
Here comes One Up's flower bill, and I'm like,
that's what it is.
I can't help it.
That's what it is. Write a letter to the White House.
Yeah. I've got the book. I know what they all look like.
And especially on the White House shows, there's, once you do your first Oval Office change, then what? You have to work with flower. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, once the trust is solidified, then they start to kind of let go of these things. Well, not completely, but
you see it on there. It's the production value of it.
Yes.
I saw that you did Blindspotting, but I thought Blindspotting was this like chick with a gun, and she was real thin. Like, I thought it was a completely different show. I don't know, it was like,
oh, I know what you're thinking of. The Blind Spot.
The Blind Spot.
That was a great show.
It was a
great show. She had tattoos, and they like dropped her in the middle of the scene. That was a great show.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I thought they did that in New York. I didn't know Kim did that here. And then I was looking it up, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck? This is like Helen Hunt and like this really cool house. And I'm like, oh, I had no idea this was a completely different show.
It definitely a completely different show, and completely different in so many ways, and timely, and I had actually committed to another show that, COVID, blah, blah, blah. And so then, I was called for this show in the meantime, and I had already turned it down a couple of times. And then, super emotional, of course, the producer texted the production designer, David and Rafa, David Diggs and Rafael Casal, the creators, they saw Kim's website, and they really want her to do what you got to do. And I remember this is because that was the first show we did coming back from COVID. I was walking the dog, and that was a copy and paste text. Oh, I was so emotional. I was like, they really want me. It was that actual moment of like, this is happening.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean,
yeah.
In a way of like, oh, okay, you really want me. Well, I looked up your website. You have a really good website, by the way. And then I just tried to put it up when I was just before. Is it KimberlyLeonard.com? What is it?
KimLeonard.net.
KimLeonard.net. That's why.
Yeah. There's
like, oh, wait, let me pull that up. Because I did look at it. You have a beautiful design there. It's really nice.
Oh, thank you. I've had a little help along the way, and then I maintain it by myself. And then when I get in a jam, I call and say, "Oh my God, I've biffed it. I've deleted everything." Of course. But it's so important, because it is our first looks, and yours is amazing as well. And you have so many different types of sets, and
I know it gets I mean, at a certain point, I look at that, I'm like, why do I even have this on here anymore? Like, this is dumb, but. Well, but concert, like, I guess I should keep that on there. Or like, how many bedrooms and shit can we show? And
I totally get it, but you know what? If somebody says like, oh well, look, I'm not interested in doing kid shows right now, for example. It's just not my thing. But if somebody said that, I could be like, yeah, look on the grinder. I have 2 kids' bedrooms.
Yeah.
You know, these are nothing, or things like that. I always try to keep it fresh, and try to keep it updated. But most importantly for me, I've tried to keep it well-rounded.
Yeah. And I really need to go in and edit my shit because I got way too much bones on there and like.
No, but Bone still holds up.
Well, hey, speaking of I still get things like, where was that blanket in
I'm sure of
the
it.
office? And I'm like, dude, that was
Great looking show.
like, that blanket's gone. You're not getting that now.
Right? I know. I got an email a couple weeks ago about some drapes it was a message through Instagram, some drapes in Jane's Drape Center in Xiomara's house. And I'm like, can you send me a pic? Because I did 4 versions of that room and she sends me the pic. I'm like, yeah, cost plus 2016 or whatever it was, And I love that people feel that way about the stuff. And Bones, I mean, those labs, amazing. Progressive, still hold up.
Labs. They were the Phil Toulon design of it was all like, it was beautiful, and it held up for years. Like,
but you shopped it from the beginning.
I shopped it after the pilot.
Yes, that's the beginning.
Like the autopsy room and like some other shit.
Yeah, I mean, holds up. Yeah, totally holds up.
That's a lot of lab shit, though. I remember all that. I remember.
But see, that's what I'm saying. If somebody says, because you've been doing the White House for so long, and I don't think this could happen to you, but you become now the White House person, right? You've unseated Ellen Totleben as the White House person, but you're actually not, because look at all this great other stuff that is still relevant and still holds up and made it timeless, and you've made it so that that's the benchmark.
It's really great in our little world what we get to, like, I always say, like, who knew you'd be researching labs one day, or like this Siemens thing that you know is helping people save lives and you're trying to get one. Like, it's crazy.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, the funny thing about the Siemens machines too is we actually shot the green and white Theranos Page Mill set in the Siemens building.
Oh my God, that is crazy.
We blew out a complete floor and turned it into Page Mill offices 2 stories beneath us. It was, I don't know, it was just, we'll just call it a beautiful office building in Hawthorne. Mm-hmm. 2 stories beneath us is Siemens. And they're doing this. They're actually doing these blood samples, and I made friends with the building maintenance person.
Try to get a key and getting in the lab.
Try to get a key. And he gave me a complete tour, and there were things in this thing, no cameras, of course, I hadn't even considered. And he said, now when you're done with your labs, I want to see those shit. So this was our deal. And during COVID, I mean, boy, that was a whole thing getting him up there. There was
an operation.
Totally. It was going to happen though, because that's the deal. But things that I hadn't even considered, because it's not researchable. It's not, it's not something that we would look up and say, oh my gosh, that's such an interesting way to dispose of something. Yeah. And now I have a new source, and now I have a new connection to just call and say, hey, what do you think about this? He couldn't believe I got the machines. He was like, I don't know how you did this. This is wild.
Sources are hard to come by. Sources are good.
Luck and timing. Luck, timing, and persistence.
Can't tell anybody about your sources either. But you did some lab work in Mosquito Coast too, right?
We did. It was more of a Allie was a genius. Justin Thoreau, he was a genius, and as you know, based off of Mosquito Coast with Harrison Ford, and he was the guy who could turn anything into something, and something incredible that he thought was going to change the world. Yeah. And so we had kind of a baseline and a template of what that feeling was like. And what his lofty goals were, like with this ice machine, that was his ultimate, and that's what was going to get him to the next level. And he had already been to the next level. He had already been this amazing scientist and all of that. And not going to spoil it why they're on the run, doesn't matter. But we already knew that, this was a lot more than a small science guy or somebody who's doing experiments at home.
Those sets are fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
Those sets
We had a
are
good time.
so in depth and so because I talked to Ethan Taubman about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, where did you shoot this? Like, where is this? Because
all over.
It's so great because we go to so many locations over and over and over again. You're like, oh yeah, I know that room at the Biltmore. Oh yeah, I know this. Blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. And so when I see something, I'm like, where the fuck? Where is that? Like, where did they like that whole underground? When they are like that, like episode 2 or 3, or maybe I think it's 2, when it's like they're running on the street and it's just the dad and the daughter, and you go to that homeless encampment.
That was in Mexico. That was amazing. And the way they stitched it all together, our work here and their work in Mexico was incredible. The Mexico team did an amazing job. And we sent a ton of stuff down there, which was great. So it wouldn't look like, just a completely different idea.
Yeah.
And actually, that alley lab was right before that, maybe 2 or 3 months before that. It was on Dick Cheney as like Dick Cheney's childhood home or something like this.
Oh, no way.
So it was so completely different to see the before and the after and the middle of nothing.
Right.
It felt like a pretty great accomplishment.
No, I'm on episode 5. Because I watched a couple for him and then I started watching more because I'll finish it. But I'm like, because I love that movie. I loved River Phoenix. I loved it too. I mean, can you imagine doing that set decorating during that time with all the, yes, that's when you got to really like, I feel like that those days before everyone received Pottery Barn catalogs at their house and had Google, just Google it, that's when people were really able to get the trust and to create. Yeah.
And that whole amazing village that was created was like
unbelievable.
I mean, unbelievable. And I'm like, I don't know how I would even get there doing that. Those to me are the kind of challenges that I want to be able to get to at some point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on a scale, we do it. I mean, there's certainly plenty of things that is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this whole big, office building or this walk and talk for 2 seconds and it's 30 seconds and it's like the Pentagon or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I like to tell the DPs, keep it wide.
Yeah.
Keep it wide.
Yeah.
Give me a second. Give me a chance here.
Yeah. It's and you never know these days, it's what we do know is it's never what we discuss.
No.
It's never what we discuss, it's always that. And so just do everything.
Are you watching anything that's inspiring right now?
I love Winning Time.
Me too.
Wow. Love it. Looks beautiful.
I love that I feel like I'm watching something from 1979.
Graininess of it. I love it. And being from LA, of course, Magic Johnson is, he's from LA. We've taken him over. It's not even we've adopted. He's now from LA. We're just accepted everyone. Just that energy and that time period was so magical here. Yeah. My first concert was at the Forum.
I've never been to the Forum. I'm really bummed. I'm jealous. That's awesome.
Spectacular space. So to see how that kind of story is building about, I had no idea any of that way before me to feel that.
Answer. I had no idea any of this. It's a great story.
It's a great story. So I absolutely love it and love looking at it. The richness of it and the layers of it and to see what they're doing. I mean, it just looks beautiful.
John C. Reilly's office is really good.
His office is great. Kareem's house I love.
Yeah, Kareem's.
There's some really cool spaces there.
Yeah.
So I'm completely into it.
I was saying on this last episode, there's so many things right now that are like We Crashed or The Dropout or Inventing Anna, about like all these people who are liars and like thousands and teens. It's like, all we're watching is people lying and everybody getting millions of dollars for it.
I know. I
It's
know.
crazy.
And the dropout story continues. It's now Sunny's turn in the hot seat, her boyfriend, and we'll see what happens. And she's pregnant. And I mean, there are many, this could go easily into an unlimited series, as it seems.
Yeah. I don't, maybe maybe there's a season 2. That would be good.
I'm ready for it this time.
Ready?
I'm ready for it. I've rebooted.
You know your rules now. You got your rules down.
My expectations have been right sized.
Is there any one of your like favorite design movies or anything you wish you could have decorated?
Boogie Nights.
Perfect.
It's still, anytime anyone, it's like, it's Boogie Nights. That time period, that feeling, that whole, I was looking for a house for a friend of mine, and I just yesterday saw one for sale on Wonderland Avenue. I was like, this is it. John Holmes, you're not from here. I'll tell you the whole story in person, but this is it. This is the one, pull the trigger. You
can't let her live on Wonderland.
Why?
Well, it's a hell of a ride to get up there. If you need milk, it's 20 minutes to get down to 7-Eleven. It's I did that movie.
You did Boogie Nights?
I did no.
Wonderland.
I did Wonderland.
Wonderland was great.
Wasn't it good?
It was great.
I don't know. I mean, I was like the PA, but like I did it.
It was a great movie.
If I had anything to do with it.
I went to Wonderland Avenue Elementary.
Oh, no way.
I did.
That's fantastic.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
Boogie Nights, Casino,
I know. Casino is one of mine.
I mean, these are so on the nose, but I also, top movie for me, The Conversation.
Oh, that is the top movie. It's
right?
Always the top movie. It is. The DP I just interviewed, we talked like 20 minutes about The Conversation.
The Conversation, the sounds, and I mean, it's just perfection. His apartment with the wood and all of it. I just think about the meetings, about pulling up that floor, what those meetings must have looked like, must have been insane.
Yeah.
And I'd be a complete nerd about it too.
Well, it wasn't though. It was like, hey, we're going to pull up the thing, and they just did it. Do you know what I
They
mean?
just did it. Yeah. Not everyone weighing in on it. They probably had like 2 producers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to pull it up.
I mean, I think for me, that's when movies were absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Those movies are like, filmmakers.
Yeah.
And my uncle was a costume designer during that time period. And to watch him create, I knew I wasn't going to be a costume designer. No way. I wanted to deal with things that didn't talk back.
Yeah.
But, the stuff that he did, he did Wonder Woman. They shoot horses, don't they? Diamonds Are Forever, right? Just Viva Las Vegas, all this kind of stuff where absolutely everyone and it probably wasn't like this, but at least in my mind, absolutely everyone were artists.
Yes.
And relied upon and total geniuses at what they did. Because I remember, sitting with him as a kid and going out and looking for stuff for Spaceballs. And what it took to do John Candy's ears. That was a full weekend. Right? It that kind of attention for me, that's the kind of pressure in my brain. I want to be as good as that. Yeah. And I want to create as good as that. And I want to develop the trust as good as that. And I'm still working on communicating that that's what I want to deliver. And at some point, and you and I have talked about this, where I'm like, you're just gonna have to trust me. I can't explain it. I'm just gonna have to show you.
Yeah, but Kim, I think you're there. You're doing it.
I'm never gonna be there. In my mind, Kim, I'm never there. But feeling like I'm never there. I love that you say that, but feeling like I'm never there is what keeps me going.
Well, I get that, but you're there.
I love that you say that, but I see work that you do and work that like Susan Eschelbach does and that Jim did, and the range.
I think all the time, like when I look at other shows, I'm like, I could have never done that. I was talking to Don Deers. I'm like, I would have never thought about that. I would have never. He
Yeah.
goes, yes, you would have. I was like, I don't know. I just think I could not have done that set. That set was amazing. Like, I don't know.
Well,
It's
that's what I
crazy.
think. That's what I think about. Like even thinking about, the original Mosquito Coast. It's like, how do they get there?
Yeah.
How do they get there? I mean, how do you get to that thought, and how do you get to that execution? And there's so many layers of it. And that's the kind of stuff when you're standing on the other side of it, it's like, oh, that was nothing. you
Yeah. Well, yeah.
know,
I also think there wasn't 50 meetings about something, or there wasn't another huge set shooting the next day. Like it was filmmaking. It was passionate
yes.
filmmaking back then. And right now we have passion, but we're making content.
Well, yes. And that's a little bit what yes, I wrestle with that, because for me, doing right now, 70s, Miami, Columbia, Los Angeles, we're all over the place. I know what that is. I know what that smell is.
Yeah, yeah.
I got it. My father was general manager of the Herald Examiner in Los Angeles for 25 years. I know that energy of, the printing press going when there's crazy stuff going on in the world. And that's the kind of stuff that for me, it's like, that shit has to be right.
Yeah.
That is a thing. Don't tell me, well, I think cell phones came out. No, 1983. That's when people started using, let's just accept it was 1983, and or whatever that thing is, and I think that that's what all of us, whatever our field are, you have 1, 2, or 3 people on a crew that are really good at it. And
Yeah.
or you feel like you're trusted with the information, but then everyone Googles or has an uncle who, or or one time they did or whatever, which is all great input. It's all great input, and then you're still making content.
You're still, yeah. I mean, you have to have passion if you want to survive in this. You have to want to get up every day, because when you don't want to get up,
Kim, anytime I see something and I'm like, I don't understand it, but I wasn't in that meeting.
Oh, well, yes. And I think I have to say, like, there's plenty of times things are moved around on set and you're not aware of it. And it's like, well, that's what that's what the director wanted, that's what he wanted. Like, and you're like, that's not how I left it. Like, so
the worst thing in the world for the shooting company with me is that app, Q-Take. I'm screen grabbing, my Apple Pencil's going all night. And the first time I was able to use that was on Blindspotting. And that was just a full
I don't know
bucket of that full bucket of trust. They never moved anything. They were like, whatever you want, just handle it, because they knew they were dealing with an insane person.
I don't know what you're talking about. Food take? What'd you say? Food
Q-Take.
Q-Take. I don't have it.
The Q-Take app. It's when you somehow zing into the camera and
the onset dresser has that.
Yeah, you don't have time for this, Kim. You have a life.
I don't have
it. Yeah, no, I have it with an iPad and an Apple Pencil, and I'm like a maniac.
Well, good. Well, I mean, now I know, and maybe I can get it. I thought it was just for the onset, so maybe now I cue into that.
It is for the onset. And what I actually find, I'll give you an example of a recent question, and this is why it came in handy. We're doing a club, very famous club in Miami, and there's of course a time lapse. And the time lapse is over a few years. We're block shooting, blah 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 blah, and it becomes what would change in 3 years? Well, nothing would change, because it's a club. Clubs don't change. They shut down and they rebrand.
Right.
And that's why and the question was about flowers. And it's like, well, let's not call them flowers. They're feathers, and they're feathers for a reason, so they can stand the test of time, and so, but to be able to see at that moment what the director's seeing and what the camera person seeing and why they're asking the questions about that specific thing at that moment is really great, to be able to have that. And to be able to give them the feedback of what it is in my head of like, this is what it is, this is look, I've redecorated 3, 4, 5 clubs over their lifetimes, and they shut down. It's not every week they're getting flowers. It's they shut down every couple of years. It's like a hotel.
Yeah.
So Q-Take has been really advantageous for that.
Oh, well, now I'm on it. Now I want that.
I'm sorry, Kim. Sorry, twins. Sorry, twins.
Well, I always get the screenshot dailies and everything and wake up at like 5 a.m. and that's the first thing I'm looking at in the morning and I'm like, oh, ooh, oh, no,
yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
Been on her
and there's some nice surprises too, I've gotten some really nice surprises where it's like, now I understand what that person was trying to say, but couldn't quite verbalize it, because I have that experience a lot too, where I'm like, trying to say it, but I can't really get it together, to spit it out in a way that they're going to understand in the non-set decorating language. And so it's really great to be able to get onto that as well,
Yeah.
Try it, but don't get addicted to it.
Being in the same book, it's always helpful.
Always helpful.
I don't know. Should we get drinks or something someday?
Yes.
Are you? Your house is fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
It was really great catching up with Kimberly, because you don't get to see everybody all the time, and the SDSA hasn't had their meetings, and that's usually my lifeline to like catch up with people. So I can't wait for the SDSA to have their actual meetings again so I could hit one. I really thought in this time off I could hit one, but they haven't had them yet. But Kim's super talented, as you can see if you've watched any of her work, and it's really great to speak with her and to have a lot of the same feelings, like when we were talking about selections of the sofa, or your own personal belief in your own talent, things like that. It's really nice to bond that way with another decorator, and I'm sure anyone in any position, you have the same struggles and the same challenges and the same triumphs. So it's always great to speak to another decorator, and especially just gush about a project that you appreciate of theirs. So thank you, Kimberly, for helping me out with that interview. Just I really just want to talk about Elizabeth Holmes' voice. I know I tried to get it in there. I know, really obsessed with it, but no, thanks for Kim for that. That was fantastic. I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wanup for Decorating Pages. We're all longing for those warm days of summer when you're just floating in the pool on your Stogie Floaty. Stogie Floaty Luxury Pool Float available now with free shipping with promo code FLOATFREE on Etsy and stogiefloaty.com.